Recording in progress.
Chair Patel, we're ready to begin.
Thank you. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Planning Commission this Tuesday evening, February 25th. I now call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ashley, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair Patel,
Here.
Vice Chair Nugent,
Here.
Commissioner Nutter,
Present.
Commissioner Klafter,
Here.
and Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Good evening and welcome. We are excited to be here in person with options for virtual participation. For those attending in person, complete a yellow request to speak slip and hand it to the clerk. If participating remotely, use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and you will be called on at the appropriate time. If calling in via phone, press *9 to raise your hand, and when called upon, press *6 to unmute. These options for public comment will remain available until I close the public comment period for that specific item. And finally, we welcome speakers providing public comment, but please be advised this is a limited public forum. As such, speakers must stay on topic if speaking to a particular agenda item. If speakers fail to follow these rules, they will be warned, and if they continue to disregard our rules, their opportunity to speak will be ended. The first item on our agenda is the consent calendar. Ashley, could you please read the consent calendar?
Yes, item number 1, Planning Commission meeting minutes approval. Approve the minutes of the regular meeting of January 28th, 2025.
Is there any member of the commission who would like to pull any item from the consent calendar? Seeing none, if any members of the public wish to comment on any consent calendar items, now would be the time to make your comment. This is for consent calendar only.
Chair Patel, we have no public commenters at this time.
Great. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
And for a vote, Chair Patel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Nugent,
Yes.
Commissioner Nutter,
Yes.
Commissioner Klafter,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williams.
I was absent, so I'm abstaining.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment. Members of the public wishing to comment on any item not appearing on the agenda may address the Planning Commission at this time. State law prevents the commission from taking action on any matter not on the agenda. Your comments may be referred to staff for follow-up. Public comment is generally limited to a total of 15 minutes. However, that is subject to this commission's discretion and can be extended if the commission wishes to do so. If you would like to make a comment about an item not on the agenda, please turn in your yellow speaker slip now, or if on Zoom, raise your hand now.
Chair Patel, we have no public commenters at this time.
Great, then I will go ahead and close the general public comment. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing, 200 North Quebec Street, special use permit to allow for a community service use. We will start with a staff presentation, then an applicant presentation, and public comments. Members of the public are given 2 to 3 minutes to speak, depending on the number of speakers. The applicant may also be given 5 minutes at the end to respond to the public comments. Once the public hearing is closed, the chair may ask staff to respond to any public comments. The commission will ask clarifying questions, deliberate, and render a decision.
Good evening, Planning Commission and members of the public. The item before you tonight is a special use permit for a community service use located at 200 North Quebec. This is Elaine Ling, Principal Planner and Project Planner for the item. The subject site, outlined in red, is located at the corner of North Quebec and Mount Diablo Avenue. The surrounding uses are single-family uses to the north, south, west, and Harborview Park to the east. The subject property and the surrounding uses are zoned as R1C zoning district. In this zoning district, the proposed use require a special use permit. Here's a little bit background. The property is developed with an existing legal non-conforming building known as Boys and Girls Club, which was built in 1950s. Back then, there were no planning or building permits exist on record as it predates any permitting or review processes. However, based on the later building permit plans, the existing building exceeds the maximum height, floor area, and setback as required in today's zoning code. Because the original development does not have a use permit and it does not conform with today's zoning standards, it is considered as a legal non-conforming building with legal non-conforming uses. In 2023, the city staff verified a code enforcement of building violations. The building has been unpermittedly altered and occupied by 2 new businesses. Because the previous use ceased for over 6 months, it is considered as discontinued. Therefore, the new use require a special use permit in the zoning district. At the end of the year of the 2023, the property owner and applicant submitted the formal application, which was deemed complete in 2024, December 2024. However, due to the challenge to meet the state licensing requirement for outdoor playing area for childcare service use, eventually the childcare and daycare service use were eliminated from this application. Currently, the application only proposed to legalize the basketball training facilities. The scope of work include adding and altering the bathroom in area outlined in red, and also repurposing all the restrooms without adding or removing any interior partition walls. The subject property or application does not require any exterior modification or expansion. Municipal code do allow non-structural related alterations. Therefore, the existing building can retain its legal non-conforming height, setback, and floor area. There is no existing parking on site. However, the municipal code do offer a parking credits. So basically, any new uses will remain its parking account as long as the new use does not require any additional parking compared to the previous existed use. However, based on a 1971 planning approval, there were 3 parking spaces dedicated for Boys and Girls Club. Those spaces were eventually eliminated from the site, as currently it would develop with homes on the adjacent site. Therefore, a total of 3 parking spaces will be required for this application. The applicant worked with the city's public work department to generate an agreement, develop a total of 7 parking spaces, partially in the city's right-of-way. As on the current slide, the proposed 7 parking spaces is shaded in pink, and the property boundaries is outlined in red dashed lines. 4 of these 7 parking spaces will be dedicated to the city for public use, and 3 of these parking spaces will be used by the proposed use to satisfy the city's parking requirement. The property owner will be responsible for the maintenance of all 7 parking spaces. As mentioned earlier, this application requires a special use permit in this zoning district. The proposed use is similar in nature and impact to the previous use. Actually, it is in the same use type with the previously Boys and Girls Club. The proposed use will not adversely affect the general health, safety, and welfare. The city's traffic engineer have reviewed the application and confirmed that this proposed application will not generate additional trips and will not create a burden on the local streets. Therefore, a traffic impact analysis is not required. Staff then will be able to make the findings for a special use permit. The project has been determined to be exempt from further environmental review under CEQA guideline 15301 for existing facilities, as the proposed use only involve interior modification without any exterior modification or expansion. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting before formally submitted this application. A total of 8 neighbors attended the meeting with no concerns or comments raised. Staff conducted public noticing following the standard procedure as outlined on the slides. 1 public comment was received with concerns on the impact to the neighborhood. The comment letter requires the following items with approval. The first request is to require the proposed use to be charitable or nonprofit in nature. However, the city's municipal code does not regulate the business type for the proposed use. The second request is to impose a parking in lieu fee for the lack of parking. Staff communicate with the Public Works Department, and staff from that department confirmed that the parking in lieu fee is typically charged in a special district where the new business potentially increase the usage of the meter or public parking facilities. However, the subject site is not located in a special district requiring a parking in lieu fee. And they do confirm that the parking count meet the city's municipal code. The associate engineer, Joan Thompson, is also attended meeting and is available for any further question from Planning Commission. The third request is to close out the interior area that's not in use. Staff also want to mention that any area not used for the basketball training facility can be used for storage or other supporting uses. With that, staff recommend the Planning Commission to adopt a resolution approving a special use permit to allow a community service use in an existing building located at 200 North Quebec in a single-family residential district, and determine that the project qualifies for a categorical exemption under Class 1, Section 15301 from further environmental review under California Environmental Quality Act, based on the finding for approval and subject to condition approval. With that, staff concludes the presentation and is happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I believe next we will be going to the applicant presentation.
Is it the applicant at the end of the public hearing?
Thank you, everybody. Good evening, member of the Planning Commission, planning staff, and residents. My name is Guy Fong, and I'm the president of City Star, Inc. We are the owner of the former Mid-Peninsula Boys and Girls Club. I'm here just to give you guys a little background. As a former member of the Boys and Girls Club and playing at the Mid-Peninsula Mid-Peninsula for over 30 years. I mean, I've been there for a long time. So I felt attached to the property. This place wasn't just a building to me. It was a second home. I provided, this place provided a safe space to grow, learn, and build lifetime friendship. That legacy built by Mr. Doe 78 years ago shaped the lives of countless young people, including my own. When I learned that the board of director of the Boys and Girls Club was looking to downsize and consider selling this property, I knew I had to step in. Through many discussions with the board of the Boys and Girls Club, I was able to convince the board that I was the right person to preserve this space and its purpose and use. So we have not changed the use. And tonight, I just want to say that I'm humbly accept the Planning Commission's condition approval. And if you have any question, I'm here to provide that. So finally, I want to let you know that allowing this permit means allowing the next generation of young people to benefit from the same opportunity that so many of us once had. It means honoring the legacy of this community and preserving a space dedicated to growth, mentorship, and enrichment. Thank you again. Thanks.
Thank you. Now we will go to public comment. So members of the public wishing to comment on this item that are in person, please turn in your yellow speaker slip at this time. And members of the public who wish to comment over Zoom, please raise your hand at this time.
And for those who are in person, I'll call your name to come up to the microphone. If anybody else wants to comment, please hand me a speaker slip at this time. Chair Patel, it looks like we have 3 commenters. So the timer is going to be set at 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay. And we're going to start with our in-person comments first. Dan, you can come up to the microphone.
Hi, good evening. My name is Daniel Dedun. I live on the address of 239 versus 200 where the Boys and Girls Club is at. I live 5 houses specifically away, but more importantly, I previously served as the executive director for the Mid-Peninsula Boys and Girls Club for over 17 years, which is located at this current facility that you had Mr. Guy Fong speak about. This building was initially constructed to support latchkey kids with after-school programming and was inaugurated by President Hoover in 1952 as an after-school program environment. The notice of the Planning Commission public hearing postcard, which I received, it was so inadequate. It didn't have all the information that we should be able to make decisions on. And I'm hoping that this could change. I'm here as a resident, as a former executive director. Let me share with you some of my concerns. Number 1, the basketball training facility is designated for K3 through K8 with, keep this in mind, 100% of all the participants are going to be out of town. They're not in a local area. They're all paying to be there. Number 2, what is the operating schedule? We haven't heard anything about that. We don't know what the weekday looks like. What does a weekend look like? What does a holiday break look like? What does a summer programming look like? We're going to open this up? And I live 5 houses down the road, which I've seen each and every year what happens when a tournament is actually in play. 3 parking slots are allocated with limited existing parking spaces, overspills into the residents' homes, public parks, visitors, baseball league. All of these things are going on all at the same place at a minimum space. Double parking, taking over residents' parking spaces, oversized vehicles. This is real life situation. I've been there for 17 years. I see this every day. What is the maximum number of people at the team 125 sports? How many people are they allowed to have there? Number 2, how do you separate and ensure the safety of the adults and the adolescents? After the building was sold 2 or 3 years ago, the new owners opened a daycare center, which obviously without permission, and there was a notice on the building, and everybody kept walking back and forth, what's going on? We never heard one word about the application. As of today, the owners have not improved the building exterior, which includes 3 unpainted wooden boxes that are empty and have dry rot. And I have pictures to prove all that. There's a wood chip bark area in front of the building that has not been maintained since its installation. 3 rain gutters become clogged regularly, causing overflow into the street, which necessitates maintenance by the homeowner.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
I'd like to, there's more concern. I'd like to request for an additional minute.
I'm sorry, sir. It's a
So I'm
maximum
going
of
to
3
submit my
minutes.
document for that.
Yes,
And I think
you can email it
Your
to
time
us.
is up. You can hand me the document. Thank you.
And there's pictures to support all of that.
Our next speaker is going to be Chi-Chen Liu. You can come up to the microphone.
Hi, everybody. I live in 211 North Quebec Street, which is diagonally across from the project. I just have a few questions regarding to, first one is the, as Stan just mentioned, we don't have a clear schedule of when they are starting, have players to play and when they're gonna finish it, you know, and what about the weekends, Saturday and holidays? We do have some families with young babies that right across from the place, and they cannot be, say, like after 8 o'clock at 9 o'clock at night, and the noise and all the sounds and the cars and the horns will bother them for their sleep, napping time. That's the first one. The second one is the regarding to the parking and traffic, because you know that's a road that normally we don't have that many cars except the residents in the area. But with all the going on project with teams practice and leads and competitions, and going to be a lot of people that are coming from outside that I don't know whether they're going to have enough parking space. Not only that, but also when the parents dropping their kids off, they have to turn around, making U-turns, and making the street unsafe. I'd just like to know what do they have in mind to handle, to take care of these situations. And the last one is the noise, especially during the summertime, the two doors are open and you can hear very loud sounds. For example, coach yelling, whistle blowing, players shouting. Okay, those can affect the immediate neighborhood, especially after dark. So these are my concerns. I'd like to have these questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
We're going to move to our Zoom public commenter. Jack, you can go ahead and unmute.
Hello. I was just wondering if you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. I live off of Trollman, which is about it's the cross street of Quebec, and I've seen this place. I moved there about maybe 4 years ago, and I've seen this place go from a pretty it wasn't painted at all. Then it became painted, and a big Peninsula Gold sign was on the side, and some of my questions are echoing off of the first person that discussed this, where there's a Peninsula Gold only sign, and Peninsula Gold is an AAU team. And my question is, are only Peninsula Gold teams can use the facility? And also, how many kids from the neighborhood play for the Peninsula Gold? Because I've done some research, and all those kids from Peninsula Gold are pretty much from Burlingame. So they're not from the local area. So that's my biggest concern. I have 3 kids, a 10-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And we're all going to grow up in that neighborhood. And I want my kids to be able to use that facility. And they might not be into playing for an AAU team. They just want to play basketball indoor or when it's raining. So I want that facility I want them to be able to use that facility. Also, another comment that I have about the November 6, 2023 meeting. That meeting came after all this building was built. When this building was painted with the Peninsula Gold sign, it was basically like redone. And then the meeting happened. And then we got a notice. So I just thought that was kind of weird how we get a notice saying if it's okay to have this building here and turn into a facility for daycare and for basketball teams. And then you do that, you have the meeting after the fact. So that was a comment that I had. Other than that, I think that's it. So I just wanted to make sure that those questions are answered, because from doing my research, that AAU team is basically from Burlingame, and I want the neighborhood kids to be able to use that facility. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Jack. Do we have any more public commenters?
Chair Patel, we have no more public commenters at this time.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment for this item. If the applicant wishes, they may have 5 minutes to respond to the public comment.
Yeah. So I run Team 12 Sports. Part of Team 12 Sports is Peninsula Gold. What we do is we're a youth basketball company. We focus on ages 3rd grade through 9th. We try to use sports as a way to impact and develop kids. The most influential people in my life were always my teachers and my coaches, and that's why we're in this now. Interesting. We have teams, and we also have training. The biggest part of what we do is training, and those are small group trainings. And so a big part of this facility, what we want to do is use it for that. We also have teams because we just view teams as kind of the final step of any type of training that you do. But so much of what we want to use, and the facilities hasn't been used, I think almost 2 years, 1.5 years, 2 years, so it's been empty. But we hope to see it filled with kids from the community and all in the area. The actual team part of what we do, because we don't have a space and we haven't used this space, we have kids come from everywhere. So we have kids from Burlingame, San Mateo. I would say most of our kids actually are from San Mateo, Belmont, everywhere. Our hope is it will be a value add to the community, and kids in the neighborhood we'd love to have, use the facility as well. As far as like times, like I said, it's been empty for 1.5 years. Our thought would be in the 4 to 9 p.m. range. They're younger kids, so for us, we don't want them out late either. So that's hopefully answered some questions.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, some of the wear and tear stuff, like the flower pot and stuff like that in front, we will take care of that. There's no issue at all. But like I said, we haven't been there for 1.5 years, and we will make sure that that's taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Would staff like to respond to any of the public comments as well?
Through the chair, I'm looking to Principal Planner Elaine Ling to see if she can speak to the business hours and the class schedule. My understanding is that something may have been submitted with the packet, so if you can direct your attention to that, that'll be helpful.
Thank you. So it's in attachment 4, the operation plan submitted by the applicant, and also the staff report briefly mentioned the business hours. So submitted by the applicants, they will run from Monday to Thursday from 4 to 8 p.m. for 2 training sessions. Each training session is 90 minutes. They will have 18 to 22 kids with 2 to 3 coach. And in summer and winter, that's their competition season, they will have small training sessions on Saturday from 8 to 12 for 8 to 10 kids.
I see it's on page 29 of the packet,
Thank you.
the schedule.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, do any of my fellow commissioners have any clarifying questions for staff?
Through the chair, I do have a question about the project operation plan. Is it how binding is it? What kind of changes can the tenant make to the operation plan? Because I see that it's provided as an attachment, and I read through it, but I'm not sure exactly how that is played into with the conditions of approval.
Through the chair, if the conditions of approval have a standard condition that says that the application has to follow everything that's attached with the agenda report as well as the plans. However, if the commission would like extra assurance, a condition could be added that speaks to the project or the special use permit being only for the operating hours as described in the operations plan.
Okay. And so if, say, changes were to be made, so this isn't actually a condition of approval that the operations plan be followed currently.
The proposed condition approval through the chair, sorry, does include some of the drop-off and pickup plans as proposed by the applicant. So they propose to have attendant to help the parents drop off their kids, so that partially being incorporated as a special or custom condition approval.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions, Vice Chair Nugent?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was just taking a look at the pickup and drop off plan because I think one of the concerns which was just expressed was, whether or not everyone is going to be behaving correctly as they come and drop off their kids, pick everybody up. I like that there's a pickup and drop off plan. I noticed that in front of the building, there's a loading zone area. Not sure if the loading zone time period aligns entirely with this pickup and drop off plan. So I don't know if that's something that the applicant could work with the city to adjust that to make sure that it's always open during the hours that they would be needing it.
Is that a question for the applicant?
Or for maybe for the city, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through the chair, so that loading zone was originally approved for the Boys and Girls Club. The proposed use does not require loading zone. However, if Planning Commission would like to add a condition to require that loading zone to be restripped and dedicated for the hours of this business, that can be added.
I think that's it for the moment.
Through the chair, just to provide clarification, there is a difference between a loading zone in terms of size and use and, say, short-term parking. So it might be worth, are we envisioning loading as in short-term drop-off and pickup for regular vehicles, or loading, say, as larger delivery trucks, trash pickup, things like that? So if the commission's interested, it would be worth clarifying because there are different standards.
May I ask a follow-up question to your question? Do you have the plans available? Can you show where the loading zone is in relation to where the proposed parking is?
Through the chair, yes. So where my cursor is at here is the loading zone currently stripped with white. This area.
Can you move your cursor? I can't see your cursor.
Oh. It's North Quebec, adjacent to the intersection. Approximately 3 to 4 parking spaces, loading spaces. Okay, thank you. So approximately from here to here, this area is currently stripped with white.
Yeah. Is it the section that's listed repaint curb for drop off?
That's for the previously proposed daycare uses. So
Okay.
they no longer need that area to be restripped, but it can be added as condition approval for the proposed basketball use.
It just seems to me that it would be useful to have an unobstructed section there, which makes it safer for and quicker for people to be entering and exiting cars in an orderly fashion. So I think that might be useful to include and to make sure that the hours of that area align with the plans for the use.
I think that's something that we could discuss when we get to the discussion.
Yeah.
Should I go?
Yes,
Go
please.
ahead. Okay. I have a couple questions. Some of them have been answered. I guess I wanted to confirm that the schedule on page 29 of the packet is accurate. It sounds like that is the proposed schedule at this time. And then I guess I wanted to confirm with the owner. So it was a code enforcement issue and use of the building was curtailed at that time, as I understand it. And then has the building been in use since that time? Okay, so it's possible there's some deferred maintenance that needs to be done when you resume the remodel or the modifications. Okay. All right. And then I wanted to just ask about one of the public comment that we got that talked about that the property was to be used for a nonprofit organization. Is there anything in the deed that says that it's required to be used for a nonprofit organization like the Boys and Girls Club for so many years?
Through the chair, based on the grantee submitted by the applicant, there's no condition require this property to be used for charitable uses.
Okay. So it's simply that it needs to be used for a community. What is the
It does not
terminology?
include that clause, yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
Just to confirm what you said, there is no clause that it has to be used for community use.
That is correct.
Okay.
It's a standard grant deed.
Got it.
Thank you. Is there any, this is just a detail, but is there any, I couldn't find it. Is there anything in the plans that allows for the building owner to add bike parking for kids that might come by bike? Maybe that's unlikely, but if it was a new building, we'd probably be doing that.
Based on the capacity of the proposed use, the applicant will be required for one bicycle parking at the building permit stage.
Oh, that's right. I did see one. That seems so.
I remember seeing something on the plan northeast that said bike parking, but I wasn't sure how many.
Just one.
It's just one.
On the data sheet, I saw one, I think. Okay, and my last question is, I guess it's a question to consider maybe during our discussion, but I wanted to just put the question out there. Is it possible for the facility to open it to the neighborhood, at some designated time, when it's not in use by the business, or at that point, it's already in your tenant's hands? I guess that's my question.
I would defer to the property owner on this question.
Through the chair, I don't think we can require we cannot add a condition of approval requiring that there be any public use, as this is a private business. But
Okay.
I just want to caution against.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
I've got a question for the applicant. If you could come up to the microphone, please. First of all, thank you for your story about how important sports were for you as a child and what it's meant to you throughout your life. And I had physical or equal feelings for the sports that I had as a child, how great it was for me to have that opportunity. And it has been a quality which has continued with me for my life. When you were going there, it was a Boys and Girls Club with a nominal or free admission. Is that correct?
It's a minor fee
A minor fee, right?
as a member.
As a member. And so you had mentioned that it gave you a place of home and safety and what it meant to you as a child
Definitely, yeah.
and what that has continued to mean to you in your adulthood.
Right.
So with that feeling, not only for this place, but what it brought to your life, are you going to be able to have programs worked into your business which will give those types of opportunities to the less advantaged people in your neighborhoods? And how could you possibly make that happen? We have had sports facilities that were brought to us. They were private clubs, and they had extended they had extended the use of their property, not deeded, but as a charitable thing to the community. Have you guys thought of any of that type of things for your business model? And I'm not saying we can demand it, because I know we can't. I'm just curious about what models you have thought that could bring that same spirit of community that you experienced.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We once they were a food delivery bank at the corner of our Boys and Girls Club. I think Elaine found out about that. And then we continue for them to let them continue their distribution of food. I also invited the director of the Boys and Girls Club, former Boys and Girls Club, Joe Egan. He's here in the audience, and he can vouch that we continue to do what we can to help the community.
Okay. And any outreach to the local community for the sports itself?
Yeah, for sure. So we formally and informally, so like one, when that's going to be, if that's our home, we want to be a value add to everyone in that community. One thing we've always done is my saying always with any family that comes across this is money's never a reason that you can't play. And so we scholarship numerous kids. And so that's, I mean, literally, I've told any family that's never a reason you won't play with us. And so we work with every family. I did have talks with the previous planner that we were first working with that, and we would totally be open and would love to like have open gyms for kids in the community on a consistent basis. Like that would just be free open gyms. We'd supervise it. We'd run it. To me, sports bring people together. We want to do that. And so I could put together a plan and like formalize it too, but we would be more than open. Like I would want to do that. That would make so much sense to me, is that it is a space for low, and I wish, I should have, but there's a lot of families I know in the community that have played for us in the past, right down the street and things as well. So like, open gyms would be, I think, the easiest, most fun way to do it. And that makes sense to me.
Well, thank you. That's very encouraging to hear, because I do know that the city of San Mateo has a very robust park system also, yet it's costly. So whatever the community or private parties can do, it would be beneficial. Thank you.
Whoever I would work with in the city, I would love, like, anytime it makes sense to be able to use that space for the community, we would be more than, we would want to do it.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Sure.
Thank you.
Through the chair, may I comment that any use, whether for charitable or business use, would need to be confined to the hours scoped in the operating plan that was submitted, and thereby in agreement with the conditions of approval. Unless the commission changes those. But what I want to advise against is having charitable uses outside of the operating hours that are not contemplated in what the commission eventually approves tonight, or if they do choose to approve the special use permit.
May I ask the applicant a follow-up question to that?
Sure.
Would you anticipate those open gym hours to be within the operating hours you put in your plan, or do you think you would want them to be outside of those operating hours?
I mean, I think those hours are probably the most conducive for kids. I would probably say we would need to do it within those hours. That would just make the most sense, because those are when kids would actually be able to do it. So we would be open to like figuring out within that parameter for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Those are the ones.
Through the chair, if I could just reiterate what the applicant said, just because our Zoom followers may not have been able to hear him, and he confirmed that those would be within the operating hours as proposed. Thank you.
And I have one more follow-up question. Sorry, my laptop is not working, so I'm trying to do all this on my phone. Can you confirm the Saturday operating hours? I think you said 9 to 12. Is that correct?
Yeah, 9 to 12.
No.
Yes, that's what it says.
Through the chair, the attachment for the project operation hours, number 3, it said Saturday 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on a seasonal basis.
Okay.
Is that the question?
That was my question.
Okay. Yeah.
We can discuss more during discussion. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, through the chair, that actually prompts a follow-up question. So if for instance, there was an interest in the community, in the neighborhood, in opening up the facility in March to kids from the neighborhood to come and play on the court, but that's outside of the hours of operation on this, would that not be allowed?
That is correct, through the chair, because the operating hours specify Saturday 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. on a seasonal basis, November to February, and July, August. So it does not contemplate March to be within that time frame.
Thank you.
Through the chair, as I stated previously, I advise against writing in any type of condition of approval regarding public use, as this is a private business applying for a special use permit.
Yes. Any more questions? I do not have any questions. Thank you to my fellow commissioners. You covered everything that I would have asked about. So why don't we go ahead and move forward to deliberation? Do any of my fellow commissioners have comments or thoughts they would like to share?
Okay.
Commissioner Williams.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation, staff and the applicant, and for the comments. I think that it was interesting to learn the history of the site and everyone's personal histories of the Boys and Girls Club. So it's been a big part of that community, I know. I generally, I mean, I guess in a general sense, I felt that the findings were met for the conditional use permit. And I think that the plans that were included in the packet appeared to include a scope of work that would address the code issues, and the set included plumbing and electrical plans for updates to the building. I mean, without knowing all of the problems within the building, I assume this will go to, building department for permit review and require inspections. And everything will be brought up to code via that channel. So the general scope of work and the plans made me feel comfortable that these problems will be addressed before it's open to the public or children or teenagers or anybody else. So I think that given our discussion about the hours of operation, we might want to consider slightly less restrictive times. I mean, the scenario that was just presented, like, what if there wants to be something, and maybe it's not open to the public, maybe it's just that one of the teams is having a get-together on a Saturday between 9 and 12 in March. That's not allowed. So I would suggest we don't put the months of the year, that we put the times of the day, because that's the most critical thing, as we've heard from members of the neighborhood, people from the neighborhood, that, we don't want, evenings or late evenings or nights, that all of those things are important to the neighborhood. So, but whether it's, the month doesn't matter. It's the time of day that's the most critical. So I would make that suggestion that we delete that from the condition of approval. And I'm not sure if we want to allow a little bit more flexibility. For instance, Friday from 4 to 5:30. Well, I don't know. I'm a parent. Has anyone ever been late picking up their child from the, pickup time? And, then people are standing around waiting with somebody's kid because, something's happened. So I would say that any place where we think there should be a little bit more leeway, that we provide that, like, and specifically Friday, I would say Friday 4 to 6 or something. And then the only other comment I would say is that one bike space in, every project we see, we're always, the building code for new buildings requires that you have short-term and long-term bike spaces. So I think that you should add more than one bike. I'm not sure how many this building would require if it was new, but, 4 bike parking for short-term parking would be appropriate in my mind. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Vice Chair Nugent.
I figure we can just work our way in one direction. I'm going to start off my comments with another question, following up on what Commissioner Williams had mentioned. And the way I'm reading the special use permit, the project operation plan, it seems like the hours of operation that are listed are specifically for T12. And I guess which is the T12 Sports, which is the program of the tenant. And I guess the question I have for planning staff or for the applicant is, those hours of operation, how would that specifically restrict the facility from allowing, neighborhood kids, if they so choose, to come and use the building at other times? It seems like those are specific to the actual training and practice programs rather than when the facility would potentially be open. I'm just wondering how I should interpret those. Are those hours when it will be specifically allowed to be open, or is it when T12 itself will have their managed programs running?
If I may make an attempt, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe based on what the city attorney said, the hours in the operational plan are the hours that the facility is allowed to be in use at all.
Okay.
Yes.
Through the chair, clarifying, I think that's important because at the end of the day, we have to have conditions that staff can meaningfully and reasonably enforce. And for staff to try to parse whether something's part of a program or not can be very challenging and from a practical standpoint. So I think just establishing hours of operations so you know when there should or shouldn't be activity is the best way to go when looking at operational conditions like this.
You bring up a really good point. I think, what about, summer camp, like basketball camp or something else? This is actually so restrictive in terms of the hours. Is that where you're going with this?
Yeah, I understand that we're looking to, follow whatever codes and laws that we have that, the applicant is understanding to be in place, but also addressing concerns from the community of overburdening the area with folks. And, setting hours seems to be one solution based on, a program that restricts the number of people participating in this operations plan. But I also understand that, having it too restrictive could potentially reduce that facility's availability for just like more general use from the community. And I'm not sure how we would go about changing anything beyond what is already detailed out in the operations plan without getting a little bit foggy and convoluted. I mean, again, ideally it would be a gym that, the kid down the block can go use, like the park next door. But also we don't, as a city, have the ability to regulate that because it's not a city property. It's not a public property. And so I'm not sure what we as a planning commission could provide beyond just saying this is an acceptable project, at acceptable hours of operations that's been presented. I wish that, we could have that more nuance, but I doesn't seem from planning staff and our lawyer that, or the attorney, that we can do that.
Through the chair, I think the idea of using the operating hours specified in the operations plan and saying that those are the hours for the facility to operate, perhaps considering what Commissioner Williams stated earlier about removing the months from it, if that is something the commission wants to consider, that's certainly possible for you to think about. And then putting a limit on the number of people, like the maximum number of people at any given point. I think the applicant has specified 22 kids at any given point with 2 to 3 coaches as being the maximum number of people in the facility. So those could be some parameters that the commission could consider, and a condition of approval could be added for the special use permit.
Thank you. Another question is, say the applicant, or not even the applicant, the tenant in the future wants to make a change to its operations. So say it finds that it wants to start right after school at 3:30 instead of 4 p.m. What would be their process to make that change? Would they have to go through the planning commission again to change a half hour?
Through the chair, there is some flexibility built into the current condition that says that any changes to the operations plan could be subject to the director approval. However, if it's a significant change, I would understand the director would want to bring it back to the planning commission.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Those were all my comments.
Through the chair. I really like the idea of reusing this facility as a gathering for young children and promoting sports. I think it's fantastic. I was a little surprised myself at the restrictive hours. It didn't make a lot of sense, but I figured it was based on optimizing the facility, at the same time making sure that the neighborhood felt that they were acknowledged or that they were being recognized. I'm very pleased to hear that the applicant is open to using this special place to further community development with our local children. I think Margaret's idea of eliminating the restriction on the months is a brilliant idea. Thank you, Margaret. And if that is easy enough for staff to do this evening, I think it would be well received. I can't speak for the rest of the commissioners. I do know that, as things progress in our community where we are divided by wealth and prestige, the more that we can have our community work together in sports and in community, the better off we all will be. And I think this operations has the ability to go further than just be a complex for those who can afford it, but for those who want it. And you have already mentioned that it can change people's lives, which we all know it can. And I sincerely hope that you will find some partnerships with the city and or your local organizations that you can promote all of us equally with programs for not only for boy basketball, but for girls and for all genders, so we can join together more as a community. Thank you.
Commissioner Klafter?
Yes, through the chair. Yeah, I think I jumped ahead a little bit earlier when I was talking about the passenger loading zone there. I think it would be great if if there was a way for the city to work with the applicant, the property owner, to kind of maybe just adjust those hours a little bit to make sure that that passenger loading zone maybe is open for another 2 hours in the evening, so that it kind of facilitates the plans for evening programming. Also, they kind of similar, feeling about the restrictiveness of this operating plan. If there is an interest in the community and having it open just as come on in, shoot some hoops. If the only hours that they're allowed to even open the doors are during the times that they're going to be having their the actual classes, that makes that very challenging. I was thinking about poor prospective athlete number 23. Won't be allowed in the gym. I'm not sure, what the answer is to that. That balances out all the different concerns. Yeah, I mean, I definitely trying to strike a balance here between, the neighborhood's concerns about traffic going in, turning around, different times of day. But overall, I think I agree with Commissioner Ebnetter that having another space for kids to go that is safe, that they can do these after-school activities, they can engage in sports, and honoring some of the legacy of this building by allowing these uses to continue, I think is pretty important.
Thank you. I have a few comments, but first I think I would like to go and discuss the loading zone striping one more time. I can't pull it up in front of me, but the drop off and the pickup plan, can someone remind me if the drop off and pickup plan uses the loading zone? It does.
It does not specify that.
It does not specify that.
Right, but they potentially can use that loading zone if it's got restrict.
Okay. It seems like that loading zone would be a convenient place to drop off and pick up kids. So without knowing exactly what hours are specified for the loading zone, it makes sense to adjust the hours of the loading zone in my mind to match the hours of the facility.
Okay, the public works staff is currently attending the meeting, so
Okay.
I would defer the question to him on any loading zone question. So, John, if you can.
Yeah, hello. I'm John, the assistant engineer with Public Works. We left a condition of approval stating that they will be restriping the loading zone on Quebec Street, and to coordinate with Public Works when the time comes to update any sign details as needed.
Perfect. Okay, so my next comments, the fast one first. I also think one bike parking space is not enough, especially if we're thinking about how we can encourage more of the neighborhood kids to come to this facility. I don't know if we can require more bike parking. I'm looking over at our city attorney. We probably can't require it, is my guess.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so we can't require it, but I would say I think it would be nice if there was more bike parking for the neighborhood kids. I don't live in that neighborhood, but my kids do go to Harbor Review Park and Ryder Park, and so we ride that far all the time. And I think there's likely other families that would ride over to that facility too. I also agree that the hours feel really restrictive, and I am nervous about committing to the restrictiveness of those hours in this conditional use permit. And I'll take one step back and say, when I read that the permit for the childcare use was being withdrawn, that made me pretty sad, because we really need childcare in our city. We really need aftercare in our city. I have elementary age kids, and it is the Hunger Games right now for after school care and for summer camps. It is really hard to find it. And I feel like this facility could be a great option for a basketball summer camp. But knowing that during the weekdays, the operating hours are 4 to, I wrote them down somewhere, 4 to 9.
4 to 8.
4 to 8, that does not cover most of the time that parents are working and need coverage during the summer. Similar with the weekends, like only being open 9 to 12 on a Saturday, my kids do a ton of sports on the weekends, and they're doing sports in the afternoons on both days, on Saturday and Sunday. So it just, the hours feel restrictive and the months feel restrictive. And I'm not sure exactly what we can do about that in this meeting.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
So isn't the idea that the neighbors don't want noise at night and cars and all of that? So couldn't we make, that the hours are, it can't be before a certain hour and after a certain hour? And maybe it can't be on Sundays, or, I feel like we're going about this different than usual.
Yeah, I think it would make more sense if it was not before 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. I'm thinking again about summer and childcare coverage, and most people who work have to be at their work by 9. But something like not before 8 a.m. and not after 9 p.m. feels like.
Well, 8 p.m. is what they've said.
Oh, they said 8? I thought they said 4 to 9.
4 to 8.
4 to 8, yeah. So like between 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. feels like a condition you could set that would open up the facility to be used on the weekdays during summer or spring camp.
Spring break.
Spring break.
Yeah,
And then also Saturday and Sunday, if you're only doing your program from 9 to 12, then you do have the flexibility to do the open gyms outside those hours. So that would probably be my suggestion, that we propose an amendment to or resolution, or a tweak to the resolution to say that the operating hours should be from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. All days. Again, I'm imagining, I know they don't have to, but if they want the flexibility to open up to the neighborhood kids outside of their official programming on a Sunday afternoon, why not?
I mean, if we want to be sure to be careful to not encroach upon the neighbors in terms of noise and traffic and all of those kinds of things, maybe it could be 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. because yes, that doesn't really work for very well for working parents, but maybe that's a compromise, that it's still adding hours so that every little change doesn't have to come back to the planning department, but it's still watching out for those early morning hours in terms of commuters and all of that. And it's also obviously watching out for noise after 8 p.m.
I would still push 8 to 8 because of the childcare issue. And I hear the concerns about the noise, but there's also a city park immediately behind the facility. And so there's already noise from kids playing in the city park. And we're talking about a facility that has 22 kids at most at one time. So I don't think it's going to be super impactful from a noise standpoint. Although having been to birthday parties, I think 22 kids in one building can get a little bit noisy.
We live there. You need to be there to understand the noise.
The public comment period is over.
So we're maintaining, so the proposal, so what we're talking about is keeping the operational plan as it is in terms of the number of kids, increasing the hours just because it seems likely that there's going to be some point when the business is going to come back to the planning department to add in a spring break or something. And so,
I'm just thinking about the community benefit, right?
and that as well, right? And-
If they offered summer camps, or if they had the flexibility to offer summer camps or spring break camps or winter break camps, if they wanted to, we can't require it. That is a huge benefit to working parents.
I agree.
Through the chair, so the applicant submitted an application based on their desires. Would you like to check in with the applicant about this modification?
Yes, can we check in with the applicant about this proposed modification?
I've learned a lot doing this, and what you are, that makes so much more sense to me.
We definitely appreciate that. I mean, this gives us a lot of flexibility to do other sources like nonprofit events and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've learned a lot.
Learn a lot.
That's
Thank you.
thought. I mean, it's thoughtful. That's what we want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
you.
when this makes more sense. So like, thanks for even allowing us to kind of think through that. That makes more sense. It really is the heart of what we want to do.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sure we would have had to come back in a couple months. And once I thought, oh, this is way too rigid. So this makes a lot of sense.
Well,
So I
it's
would be
helpful-
totally open for that, for sure.
Well, it's helpful to know what the, what your
Yes.
operation plan is.
Yeah.
And then to allow for some flexibility so we're not creating problems.
In terms of 7 days a week, I mean, I was thinking about Sunday evenings, would you ever be programming things on Sundays much?
We typically don't.
Yeah.
But so much of our world is just space-based and just availability, right? And, more opportunity to, so, we typically don't, but it doesn't mean we wouldn't, and I do think of the community things, like the open gym times would happen more, I think, in those kind of evening time or, even, so which we do want to do. Like, those are the things. I don't want to have a facility and it not be open to the kids around. It doesn't make sense to me. And so makes so much more sense. And so, I mean, I played a ton of sports growing up. To have a space I could ride a bike to and just go hoop is amazing. And so that really is the heart of what we want to do. And for it to be shut down a lot, because I probably wasn't thinking through exactly all the programmatic stuff, I think doesn't make sense. And I want to honor the neighbor. We will do a really good job of trying to be a value add in that community. But this makes sense to me.
Through the chair. So as staff has pointed out, this is your plan. This is what you had requested.
Right.
If you felt that it wasn't the best for you and or the community, why was it used?
I thought early on, the way I was kind of presented it was just very specific to like how I currently do practices and programs and things. I've never had a space other than I have it 2 nights a week or whatever. And so that's why that's what we did.
And maybe we weren't aware that it was going to be a condition of approval, these specific hours.
Yeah, I did not realize
I
that.
did not realize that.
I don't think I fully did either. It was more programmatically of what we kind of are currently doing is what I was under the impression that was what I was kind of supposed to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Could we get the text of the resolution up on the screen? Thank you.
Through the chair, I was looking at the conditions of approval, and we have condition 30 that speaks to the project following the operations plan and all the details that are specified in the application. If the planning commission wants to amend that condition, that might be one path available to you to specify maybe a 30A that says that the operation plan shall be followed by the applicant, however, with the exception of the operating hours, which shall be from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. or whatever the commission decides is appropriate.
Through the chair. So I'm thinking about this as far as what would be a procedure that might satisfy the most people. What if for operating hours, the project applicant would still need to get approval from planning staff for changing their operating hours from their project plan. But as long as the operating hours were between 8 and 8, it would, and based on the discretion of the planning staff, it would not need to go to the planning commission for approval.
I think we could offer that, but I guess I just would wonder, what purpose does that extra step serve? Like, is there a compelling reason planning staff would say, no, not at 3 p.m. on a Saturday?
And how much forethought does that require? That means that there's not the ability to host something on, you need to look a month ahead to be able to get planning department to have the time to review it. And
Yeah, it feels
I
like
could
it-
be wrong. Maybe they can do
Yeah.
it a lot faster, but it doesn't allow
Right.
for any flexibility.
Yeah, I understand this. I completely understand why we're talking about this, because it is, I've never seen such a restricted hour stipulation within a project application of, basically an hour and a half on one day that it can be open.
Because it wasn't anticipated.
Yeah, I
to
don't
be
think
a
the
condition of
applicant was
approval.
anticipating this to be binding, that Fridays from 4 to 5:30 were the only times that it would be in operation and open. And I do think that reasonable time limits, especially to allow like the drop-off area to be used as additional parking when it's probably most needed, which would be after 8 p.m. and before 8 a.m., could be beneficial. I think 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. as like a restriction could help for noise, but I would be sad if this facility would be unable to be used by neighborhood kids at 3:30 and they get out of school.
Is anyone interested in making a motion, or do we want to discuss further?
I was just going to add that, I think if we were going to propose to open up the hours a little bit more, might still want to have a little bit more consideration for, like late on a Sunday. Trying to still keep in mind that, the neighbors have expressed a concern about, how much will be going on there, and if programs wrap up at 8, there's still people coming and going, picking up, dropping off, and we might want to just maybe not say all the way until 8 p.m. on weekends or something like that. I don't know. Just trying to keep that in consideration.
Through the chair, I was speaking with the planning manager, and perhaps the commission wants to include a condition 30 subsection A with
Yes.
specific operating hours. And do you all want to do that on a day-by-day basis or per week? We can help with saying that the maximum operating hours shall be from such time to such time.
I believe that is where we're going, and I think it sounds like we're discussing whether it should be more restrictive than 8 to 8 on a weekend. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm maybe just pulling that back a little bit in the evenings there in particular.
Question for staff. What are the quiet hours of the city?
There is a noise ordinance for construction.
Correct. So 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Construction, I thought was limited to 7 PM.
That is correct. My apologies. Those are the quiet hours in general
Yeah.
for noise allowances, but the construction hours are more limiting. There are also further restrictions. I believe on a Sunday or on the weekend, there are further restrictions on construction hours.
I remember the other thing I was going to ask, or I was going to bring up, the going to the planning, having to go to the planning department every time you wanted to use the property outside of the agreed upon business plan. I'm not sure if that's the best use of planning's time either.
Yeah, same. I was thinking of a nonprofit asking to use the space and then having to go ask to planning department feels prohibitive.
Yeah, I understand.
So what hours are we looking at then? Like 8 to 8, Monday through Friday? And then what, like 9 to 7, Saturday, Sunday? Does that seem appropriate or?
I think so. If you feel the need to restrict it on the weekends, I would be fine with that.
Through the chair, I think slight restrictions on the weekend might be beneficial because some folks want to have a little bit more peace and quiet on a Saturday morning. And others
Fair.
might want to have a little bit more peace and quiet on their anxiety of Sunday night going to work on Monday.
Yep.
So, we have to be somewhat flexible and attuned with what people may want. I'm sure there's folks who were exceedingly happy with these hours. But I think that it's clear that we don't understand these hours, how they would operate properly for even a private industry, let alone private that wants to do some public work. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I would fully support this change Monday through Friday. We said 8 to 9.
8 to 8.
Oh, 8 to 8. Oh, yeah, 8 to 8. Saturday, 9 to 6. And Sunday the same?
Yeah.
Through the chair, I'm just looking at our city's standard construction work hours. And on weekends, it's Saturdays 9 to 5. So I would recommend we just follow that for simplicity. And then on Sundays, it's from noon to 4 p.m.
That feels really restrictive for a Sunday.
I also think that construction is a lot
Different.
worse noise to live next to.
I would say 9 to 7 or 9 to 6 on the weekends.
Okay.
Seems unlikely people would be out on the weekends after dinner time anyway.
So 9 to 6.
How do people feel about those hours?
I-
Would someone like to make a motion? We would just ask to modify condition of approval number 30.
You gonna do it?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to modify condition of approval number 30 to restrict the operation hours from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays and from 9 a.m. to 6 on weekends.
And the months.
Oh, and remove the month restrictions.
Correct.
Through the chair, there is the recommendation to adopt the
Oh,
resolution.
yes. And then
so
I
if you
also
would
want to recommend that we adopt a resolution as proposed on the screen.
Did we want to also address the parking situation or no? Or
I believe that Public Works said they would already work with the applicant to match it to the hours.
So can I just reiterate the motion for clarity? So the motion would be to adopt the resolution and the full recommendation as presented, to add a condition 30 subsection A to state that the project operational plan shall be followed at all times, regardless of the time of year, except that the maximum hours of operation for the facility shall be between Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and on Saturdays and Sundays shall be from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Correct. You said regardless of the time of year, so correct. Yes.
I'll second that motion.
And for a vote, Chair Patel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Nugent,
Yes.
Commissioner Ebnetter,
Yes.
Commissioner Klafter,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. And I will read my last little note here, which is given the decision tonight, it can be appealed to the City Council within 10 calendar days. And I believe that is the end of item number 2. Ashley, may we take a 10-minute break before item number 3?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll resume in 10 minutes.
All right, sorry for the false start. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission and members of the community. My name's Liz Gagliardi. I'm an associate planner, and I'll be presenting tonight on our agenda item 2 for the appeal of a single-family dwelling design review for an SB 9 two-unit development at 1825 Nash Drive. Starting with a quick overview of tonight's presentation, I'll begin with an introduction and overview of the project background, followed by some code and policy review, the reasons for appeal, and finally our staff recommendation for Planning Commission action. Starting with an overview of the project history. The project was introduced with the required neighborhood informational meeting, which was hosted by the applicant back in November of 2023. A formal application was then submitted for the Development Review Board review to the city in December of 2023. After a few rounds of review and resubmittal to address comments, the project was deemed complete and the noticing was sent out for zoning administrator decision. Following that duly noticed public review period, the zoning administrator approval was issued on November 7th, 2024, and on November 18th, 2024, an appeal was filed, bringing us to tonight's hearing. The project site is located at 1825 Nash Drive. Do we lose our slides?
We can see them on our monitors.
Okay, great. We'll continue. The project is located at 1825 Nash Drive in the Shoreview Parkside neighborhood, east of US Highway 101. It's existing as one parcel, 11,233 square feet in size. There's an existing two-story single-family residence at the front of the property. The site has a general plan land use designation of residential very low, and it's zoned for single-family residential in the R1C district. The project includes an urban lot split to create 2 new lots in a flag configuration, with 2 units proposed on each lot for a total of 4 units. Lot A, which is the front lot along Nash Drive, includes the existing 1,863 square foot single-family residence, which will remain unchanged, with the addition of a new 1,200 square foot detached ADU or accessory dwelling unit at the rear of the lot. On Lot B, which is situated behind Lot A, with an access provided via a driveway easement onto Nash Drive, there's a new 2-story residential structure proposed. This includes an SB 9 primary unit with an attached 2-car garage totaling 2,340 square feet. That's on the first floor. And on the second floor, an attached 800 square foot ADU. Here's a closer look at the proposed development on each lot. So starting off with Lot A, which has the frontage along Nash Drive, this includes that existing 2-story single-family residence, which has a 1-car garage. This 1-car garage is legal non-conforming with regard to the front yard setback, and this legal non-conforming condition is allowed to remain since no changes are proposed to the existing home. There's a new 1-story ADU, which is proposed to be built behind the existing residence, and there's no parking required for the ADU. The development on Lot A will result in 2,263 square feet of floor area, which is less than the maximum allowed. I'll also note that 800 square feet of ADU area has been exempted from this floor area calculation, as it's allowed by right under state law. ADU area exceeding 800 square feet has been included towards the maximum FAR. On Lot B, which is that flag lot proposed behind Lot A, there's a new 2-story residential structure proposed. This includes an SB 9 primary unit on the ground floor with an attached 2-car garage totaling 2,340 square feet, and an attached ADU at the second floor totaling 800 square feet. There's no parking proposed or required for the ADU. The development on Lot B will result in 2,340 square feet of floor area, which is less than the maximum allowed, and the 800 square foot ADU exemption has also been applied for this lot, consistent with state law. So moving on to our code and policy review, I'll start with an overview of the applicable state laws. This project is subject to Senate Bill 9, or SB 9 for short, which applies to all single-family residential zoning districts. SB 9 requires ministerial approval of an urban lot split to create up to 2 new lots, as well as ministerial approval of up to 2 new residential units on each lot, total of 4, and those can be up to 800 square feet in size under a ministerial review. I'll note that ministerial approvals are done at a staff level if a project meets qualifying criteria and are not subject to an appeal, unlike a discretionary review. So in addition to SB 9, the City of San Mateo has an extra provision in our municipal code that does allow for discretionary review as an alternative to ministerial review, specifically for SB 9 projects that propose an SB 9 unit exceeding 800 square feet in size. This project is subject to that discretionary option as it includes an SB 9 unit of 2,340 square feet over 800. This discretionary review includes us taking a look at zoning code compliance, as well as a review for conformance with single-family dwelling design guidelines. This slide includes an at-a-glance overview of how this project is consistent with applicable development standards. I'll note that the setbacks in the chart only include data for the proposed new units. The project is in conformance with single-family dwelling design guidelines in that the architecture of the proposed units is compatible with the existing home and the surrounding neighborhood context. View and privacy concerns have been mitigated through offset window design, as well as a fence and landscape buffers. The project is within the allowable floor area ratio. It conforms to building height requirements and meets minimum setbacks. I'll also note that SB 9, as well as ADU law, establish a lesser setback requirement than the R1C zoning district would otherwise allow. So for these units, the SB 9 and the ADUs, they're allowed 4-foot side and rear setbacks, which all units do meet or exceed. The project was also reviewed in the context of the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, and was found to be categorically exempt. It includes new construction or conversion of small structures, less than 6 units, and it is not within an environmentally sensitive area. Moving on to the appeal. This appeal was filed citing specific concerns related to parking impacts and the site circulation, as well as the project density. The appellant has cited concerns that the project would increase parking demand in the neighborhood without providing enough stalls on site, as well as the concern that turning radius was not provided for vehicles to exit the site, particularly for Lot B, that flag lot behind the Lot A. Staff's review has found that the project does meet or exceed minimum requirements of state law and local zoning regulations for parking and circulation. For parking, there's a minimum of 1 standard size stall required for each SB 9 primary unit. I'll also note that SB 9 does specify that a local jurisdiction cannot require more than this 1 stall to be provided for each SB 9 unit. The ADUs do qualify for a parking exemption, so parking is only required for the primary units. Lot A will maintain that existing 1-car garage, satisfying this requirement, and Lot B proposes a 2-car garage, which actually is meeting the requirement plus an extra stall. For site circulation, vehicles are permitted to back out directly onto the public right-of-way for single-family and 2-unit developments. There's no additional turning radius required, though adequate space is provided on this project on Lot B for a car to make a 3-point turn and exit the driveway facing forwards. This configuration was also reviewed by Public Works staff, who found it to be satisfactory to meet those requirements. The site plan here highlights in green where the parking stalls are provided and also shows that voluntary turning radius, which is provided on Lot B. For project density, the number of units allowed on site is established by state law through SB 9. This chart shows the different scenarios that could be considered for development under SB 9. So this project corresponds with what's highlighted in red. for a lot with an existing single-family home. When a lot split is proposed, up to 2 units may be proposed on each lot, including ADUs, so a total of 4 units are allowed. As shown on the previous diagram, under SB 9, a total of up to 4 units can be developed on a single-family lot. This project is consistent with this requirement, proposing a total of 4 residential units. On Lot A, that existing home plus an ADU, and on Lot B, that attached primary unit and an ADU. And I would also note that this maximum of 4 units is allowed by right under SB 9, so that density is not subject to appeal. So with that, I'll note that the city did meet all of our noticing requirements and no additional public comments were received. I do believe the appellant and the applicant are both present tonight, and I've provided some comments that were provided today by the appellant on your stations for review. So with that, I will leave you with the staff recommendation shown on the screen and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we will move on to the appellant presentation. The person who filed the appeal.
Is this okay? So it appears you answered a lot of the items that I had on the appeal paper here. I do have a question about the SB 9 single family unit addition. Is that covered? Does the stipulation in the ordinance about public transportation hub apply to that? Because a main public transportation hub has to be within a half a mile of a new single family unit that you're adding to that lot, correct?
See, this is the time for the presentation, but not question and answers for staff. Afterwards, staff will have the opportunity to provide input as directed by the commission.
Okay, so my presentation, that would be one of the questions that I have about what was discussed. And I still feel that putting that many people in a small residential area as it sits right now would present more than just a couple parking spaces needed. It would be possibly 10, depending on how many adults were housed in these 4 units that you're proposing to add to this split lot. It does present a lot of traffic, congestion, the construction that's going to be done there. It's going to present a lot of problems for that small residential area, which is a very small, maybe 1-lane street that goes in and out of that area. It is an offset residential neighborhood that has been there for many years, and a lot of the people there are 2nd and 3rd generation, and you're proposing to put a apartment complex in a backyard, which is going to affect some of their the backs of their houses. You said that the windows would not be affected. They wouldn't be able to look into their other neighbors' houses. It will be a thing. I've gone to the neighbors' houses that are on the side of their fence. You're proposing putting these units right up against the fence. They're going to be looking in there, and I feel like that's an invasion of their privacy. And I don't think that's really being considered either. I know that when they presented it to us for the neighborhood meeting, there was neighbors all around that house that were very concerned about how their privacy was going to be affected by this monstrosity of an apartment complex that you want to put into a backyard. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Now we will move on to the applicant's presentation. The applicant has up to 15 minutes to present.
I have to be told. Good evening, everybody, Planning Commission, as well as planners. My name is Shiva Hu, and this is my architect, Kenneth Huo. My husband, Stephen Wong, who unfortunately can't be here tonight due to kids' duties. We're the owners of the property at 1825 Nash Drive. Just wanted to first say thank you for the opportunity for us to present from our point of view and provide the insights on the project itself. We don't have any additional slides because everything that's factual that's being presented by the planner that we've worked closely with. It was Laura before and Liz now, hand in hand in the last 2 years to get to where we are here today. But I do want to share a little bit about the intent, right, of the project in itself. And then I also share the story of why we wanted to do this in the first place with the neighbors also in the neighborhood meeting. I am a 30-year resident of San Mateo and on the street actually of Nash. I was going to pass out this picture to all of you, but it was going to be in public record, so here it is. We immigrated here, all of us, 30 years ago in 1992, into San Mateo onto Nash Drive. So my parents who are here and my uncle and aunt are actually 2 doors down from the development that I'm proposing currently. My kids grew up also on the street, also in the house with my parents, with their grandparents, as well as my grandma. So she's here, the lady here. Unfortunately, she's passed 2 years ago at the age of 99, but passed in the house. The entire intent, and Kenneth knows this, is really to be able to house the uncles and aunts and the family and my parents when they get older, as well as giving the opportunity for my kids as well. We all know how expensive real estate here is in Bay Area. I wanted to do the same thing as what my parents provided me to give me that foundation establishment. And I wanted to do that for my kids. Whether or not they're going to take the opportunity, I don't know. I'm going to offer it to them. So every design in these homes is with that mind, right? With that understanding. I wanted to do a 1-story for the parents and the uncles and aunts so that when they get older, they don't have to climb stairs. Even the various bedrooms and windows and all that stuff was taking all that in mind to really build that foundation. It is culturally very important to us, right? And I think I mentioned it to the neighbors also, to provide for the next generation to have that legacy. So I wanted to be able to take care of the parents, the uncles and aunts, the relatives, as well as my kids, right, in these homes, very similar to how they've actually provided for us. So thank you for your time and thank you for the consideration.
Thank you.
If I may, I
Yes.
just have a small thing to add. It was a beautiful process for working with my client, Shiva. We meet constantly since the beginning of 2023. I think architecture is not purely about, concrete footing, 2x4, drywall, right? But I frequently visit my construction site. But the thing is that nowadays we talk about housing. We need to really kind of correlate everything to the transit, right? I mean, the transportation, So the way that we look at, the whole project is not only, about, how to create spaces to accommodate the family, the growing family, right? But also, look at the neighborhood and all that. Shiva knows that I constantly bike to the project site and, kind of, even if we get a chance, we will get a chance to interact with the neighbor and all that. It was me. We will definitely continue the conversation. If we get a chance to get the project approved, the construction process will be, another set of process along the way. But hopefully, we can help the city. I don't know, or our SB9 projects. Like I remember, we were told by by Laura. Liz predecessor, we're number 2 in the process, for getting the HB9 approved. But I don't know how we're ranking now. But we still enjoy working with the city staff to move ahead with the project. Bear with me. This is something last minute I want to add along with Shiba. So thank you so much for all your consideration and help. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we will move on to public comment. If there are any members of the public wishing to comment on this item that are in person, please turn in your yellow speaker slip now. And if you are watching on Zoom and you wish to comment, please raise your hand now.
Chair Patel, it looks like we have one public commenter on Zoom, so the time is going to be for 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Kathleen, you can go ahead and unmute.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm here with my wife, Kathleen. We live just down the street on Nash Drive. So we're here today to express our strong opposition to this project of 4 units being put on one lot with one driveway onto our street on Nash. This level of high density development is going to drastically change the character of our street, leading to increased traffic congestion, severe lack of parking. This neighborhood wasn't designed to support this kind of overcrowding. And this project, this proposal disregards the concerns of everybody on the street. It has no thought to the neighbors that have to deal with this every single day. We've lived here for 5 years, spent my whole life savings to buy this, property to raise my family of 2 kids and a dog here. And I'm outside all the time. I know all the neighbors on the street. I've never met the proposer. I've never met the architect, so he could say that he's been down here biking around on looking at the project site. That's incorrect. And I think everybody who's in that room who lives on Nash knows who we are. So like many of the neighbors here, we spend a lot of money to live here, and it's a place that we wanted to be stable, a peaceful environment. And now this project threatens to negatively impact not only a quality of life, but also the value of our homes. We made this investment with an expectation that our neighborhood would remain a livable, safe place for our families, not turned into an overcrowded apartment complex ridden street with high traffic and no consideration for existing residents. There has already been hassles with overcrowded rentals on our street. People speeding down the street, hitting our cars in front of our house, nearly taking out residents on the street. These are things that we have to deal with in this neighborhood, unfortunately, and this is not going to help the situation. So I know many of the members of the council have voiced that they're raising families in San Mateo, and I want you to think about that. If you want to live here on this street with now 4 units coming in, and I understand that she's saying that she's going to house her entire family and aunts and uncles, but right now that house is a rental property, and I've not seen her live there, and I've been here for 5 years, so I have 5 years of knowledge. But nobody's lived there, and I haven't seen her or her kids or her family growing and being part of this tight-knit community. It's just, let's put all this home, all these homes now on one lot, and I'm going to bring all my family and my kids potentially in. And I just don't buy that. I think it's going to turn into a rental property of 19 bedrooms with 19 different residences and 19 different cars. And that's a situation we're going to be in. And it's not going to be anybody on this council or commission that's going to have to deal with it. It's going to be all of us day to day having to deal with this. So I urge the commission to seriously consider this appeal and think about, if you were in our position, what would you want for your family on this street?
Thank you for your comment. There are no other public comments?
Nope.
Okay, then we will go ahead and close public comment at this time. The appellant, the person who filed the appeal, has up to 5 minutes to respond to the public comment if they would like.
No, I just want to thank Brandon for joining in and saying what he's a good friend of mine and knows people.
Okay. Then next, we can ask staff to respond to any of the public comments. And in fact, I heard a few things from public comments and from the presentations that I would like staff to clarify. One was a question about the parking requirements and the public transportation hub. So I know one of the attachments was the parking map, and I was wondering if you were able to show that and explain again, what are the parking rules that apply? What can the city require, and what is the city not allowed to require?
Through the chair, it may be hard to pull up the map, but we
Okay.
can certainly walk through the requirements for parking for ADUs. And for
Sure.
SB9 units.
Yeah.
And I'll just note to the public commenters who inquired about parking, can you remind me of the attachment number? I found that map very helpful in understanding what is allowed.
Through the chair, I think it's attachment 7.
Attachment 7, thank you.
Let's see, I'm trying to get that map open. But in the meantime, I can speak a little bit to the different standards that apply. So for SB9, this project, there's 2 different parking exemptions. So SB9 establishes an exemption for projects within a half mile of, I believe, a high quality transit stop. So for this project, my understanding is that is limited to Caltrain stations within the city, which this project is outside of that radius. So parking is required for the primary units, 1 stall for each primary unit. And then separately for ADUs, there is a more broad parking exemption. So that includes bus stops. And this site is within the area that is exempt from parking specifically for ADUs. So they're required 1 stall for each primary unit, but no parking is required for the ADUs.
So just to repeat back to you what you said, the city can require up to 2 units for this entire project, 1 for each primary unit, and cannot require any more units than that.
Through the chair, up to 2 parking stalls.
Up to 2 parking stalls
Yes.
for this project.
That's
and
correct.
the project is currently providing 3.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And another comment I heard, I believe in the appellant's application, is that the applicant is proposing to build these units up against the neighboring fences. I was wondering if you could pull up the plan again, and if you're able to speak at the distance that the units are from the surrounding properties.
Sure, yeah. And through the chair, just to go back to the previous question, I've pulled up the map showing
Thank you.
that. This is showing the ADU parking exempt areas.
So anywhere that is yellow, the city cannot require parking for ADUs.
Correct. So I will go ahead and grab those project plans. I'm sorry, could you repeat the second question?
Yes, I believe in their presentation, the appellant stated that the new units that are being proposed are right up against the neighboring fences. And I was wondering if you could pull up a plan of the property and speak to the distance that the units are located from the neighboring properties.
Absolutely. Yeah, through the chair, those plans are loading, but I can pull up our project slide, which outlines those setbacks. Just give me one moment. Okay, thank you. So I've pulled up the project slide that shows the setbacks. The required setbacks for the SB9 units and the ADUs proposed are a minimum of 4 feet required from the side and rear property lines. And then the front setback follows the R1C zoning, so 15 feet. And as you can see here, this project does meet that minimum front yard setback for all units, as well as exceeds the 4-foot side and rear setback for all of the new units proposed. So none are built to the lot line.
Okay, thank you. I think those were the two questions I had heard in the comments. Is there another one you heard?
Through the chair, I believe there was also a question about tenants in the units, and SB 9 does have restrictions that if there are sites that have tenants in them in the last 3 years, that they cannot be replaced. So I think that's something that perhaps the applicant may wish to address.
Yes, and I wonder if you could also speak to that rule. And then I believe SB 9 projects also have an owner occupancy requirement. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. They're required to cite an affidavit acknowledging that they will be owner occupied. I believe it is a minimum of 3 years.
So if we could ask the applicant to come up and clarify about the tenants.
Yes, so I believe the rule is that once you built, right, and then you would need to be living in the space for 3 years, which that's the plan anyway, because my parents and aunts and uncles and all of them are going to occupy. I think that's part of the rule from an SB 9 perspective.
Through the chair, the other requirement is that the project does not require the demolition or alteration of any housing unit that has been occupied by a tenant within the last 3 years.
Yep.
And in this case, the existing house is proposed to remain. So there are no demolition or alterations proposed.
I see. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I think those were all the clarifying questions for staff related to the public comments. So now it is our turn as the commission to ask for clarifying questions. Commissioner Williams, would you like to go first?
Sure. I, as usual, have a number of questions. I guess I'll start by saying, asking what are the choices for the Planning Commission if I have comments about the project, and really what's before us is whether or not to accept or deny the appeal. But where do comments about the design of the buildings or the design of the site, I guess, fall into, and what are my choices?
Through the chair, if I could speak to that. So the Planning Commission's review is typically on an appeal de novo, so you consider the project as a whole. However, there are aspects of the project that are ministerial in nature and are not subject to the appeal or not subject to Planning Commission's discretion. If you have general comments or guidance for the applicant, I think as commissioners, you can certainly share those with the applicants, but there may be certain things that are outside your purview, and it would be up to the applicant if they would like to move forward with those suggestions.
Okay, thank you for that.
Commissioner Williams, may I ask a follow-up question to your question? Sure. So if I understood your answer correctly, our decision-making capability tonight is limited to the ministerial portions of this application.
Only to the discretionary.
Sorry.
This application. So
I'm using the opposite words of everything I mean tonight. Yes, our decision-making ability is only to the discretionary portions of the application.
Correct.
Could you please remind us what specifically about this application is discretionary and thus define the bounds of our decision-making ability?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the discretionary aspect is limited to the primary unit on Lot B and the size of that unit.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat it back to you again. Our discretion is solely limited to the size of the primary unit on Lot B beyond the 800 square feet that is allowed by state law.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for clarifying that. Anyway, I do have other questions that aren't necessarily related to that, but I feel like it's part of the things that I'd like to discuss later. So, there was a comment by one of the public speakers that said, so unless I misheard him, 19 bedrooms. So I just went back and counted. And my understanding is there are 9 proposed, plus a dining room that looks like a bedroom to me, which I'll talk about in my comments. Is it that 9 are proposed? 9 bedrooms on the site between the 4 units. And like I said, I think that there's another.
I think there's 3 in the ADU, right, in Lot A. There's 2 in the ADU for Lot B, and the primary is 4. So 4 plus, my math, 6 plus 3, 9.
9, okay.
Nine.
And then
9
I'll
total.
talk about the one room later in my comments. Okay, thanks.
If I may ask a clarifying question, does that 9 include the existing unit to remain? Okay. And
It's 3 in the existing,
so total on the lot would then be 12.
12 on 2 lots.
12 on 2, sorry, thank you. 12 on 2 lots. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Your follow-up is great, Commissioner Patel. All right, so then my next question is, it's a little bit confusing because it's called a flag lot, but one of the documents showed that the driveway is actually an easement across the front lot. So that's not really a flag lot, that's one square lot behind the other. So can we, I feel like that's misleading because it can't be a flag lot, I guess, because of the side setback of the existing building.
Through the chair, that is correct. I think it functions as a flag lot because
Okay.
the access is provided via that easement on Lot A. So it's functionally acting like a flag lot. However,
Okay.
it is not part of the lot area for Lot B.
So that will be
the flagpole is counting towards the lot area for Lot A.
Okay, and then that is in the deed restriction, or however you were whatever the terminology is for that. That easement is part of the deed
tenant,
for
the parcel map. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And through the chair, can I just clarify that the staff report says the resulting lots are proposed in a flag lot configuration? So
Okay,
that
all
was
right,
our
thank you.
Purpose to state.
That's good to know. I didn't catch that. I'm not going to go over parking again. I had a question about that, but I think you guys have answered all those questions. That was helpful. So I have a question for staff about on page 89, it said the last item on the project data form says that an in lieu payment can be made instead of landscaping. And I mean, it was a little hard. I don't know. I don't have it up, so I'll have to look and see. I'm not sure if I'm wondering if I read that correctly. Why is this allowed? If so, landscaping, yeah, I'm just want to know if that's allowed.
Yeah, through the chair, this project also includes, and I didn't focus on this as it wasn't a subject of the appeal, but it does include a site development application for removal of major vegetation, which is defined differently than protected trees, I will note. And it has to do with the size of the individual stems of the trees.
Yeah, I saw that.
So there are, I believe it is 5 trees that qualify as major vegetation being removed. And per the code, those require either replacement planting or payment of an in lieu fee based on the replacement value of the major vegetation.
Okay, I guess that's a standard allowable item. Okay. As you said, that's per the code then. I had a question about, for the architect, I guess, what is the head height of the windows on Lot B? I'm going to talk about the massing and the height of the top plate, but
Talking about the ceiling height.
well, I want to know about the window head height. It looks like they're typically about 7 feet, like typical normal
Yeah.
standard height.
Sure.
Okay, okay, thanks. I will talk about that later when it's my turn to. And then my last question is just sort of a drafting thing. Why are there circles in the lower level house on Lot B? Are there columns or something? I wish I could find that now. I probably won't be able to find it. I didn't put down the page number, the sheet number. It's an interior thing, so it really doesn't. matter. I'm not able to find it, so I think I'll just.
So you're talking about something in the in the middle of the like great room, like kitchen,
Yes.
family room.
Yes.
Well, that's two sound tunnel,
Oh, that's okay.
solar tube.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. I thought those are strange big columns there. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Vice Chair Nugent?
Through the chair, is this project covered by SB 330 as the Housing Crisis Act because it adds housing?
Through the chair, it is part of the Housing Accountability Act because it's proposing more than 2 units. But I'm not sure about the Housing Crisis Act.
Oh, well, that's just what SB 330 was called.
Originally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, so it is. It does have to comply with objective standards because it is part of the Housing Accountability Act.
Okay, and it's the staff's determination that it does comply with objective standards like floor area ratio and setbacks?
That's an interesting question. It does comply with all the setback requirements. And my understanding is it also complies with the floor area ratio requirements because of the ADU being exempt from floor area, the 800 square feet of the ADU being exempt from floor area.
Okay. I mean, you hesitated, so I'm curious if there was something that would not be in compliance, because it seems, based on the staff report, that it is in compliance with all of our zoning laws and
yes, I
overlaid with state housing laws.
Yes, through the chair. I think I hesitated because there was that nuance about the ADUs because the ADUs are exempt from the FAR requirements.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if I may, through the chair, attachment 4 includes that project data form if you'd like a more granular look at how that FAR was calculated.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm just bringing it up. Okay.
Through the chair, but the 400 additional square feet apply to the FAR?
That is correct.
Say that again.
One of the ADUs is 1,200 square feet. So that 400 square feet applies to the FAR.
Okay. Okay.
800 doesn't.
Correct.
Okay. So it is included in the calculation of the FAR, and and that portion is in compliance with the city's standards. Okay. Well, I'm going to keep my questions just to the purview of tonight's discussion. So those were my only.
Thank you.
I do not.
Commissioner Medenter. Okay. Commissioner Clafter?
I thought it might be useful to just have a little bit of extra clarification on what SB 9 requires. It's my understanding that basically the lot split legally, there is no discretion on the part of this commission to oppose the lot split. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. And I've pulled up this slide again. I think this provides a helpful at-a-glance overview of what SB 9 allows. So the lot split is ministerial as well as the 4-unit density allowed by SB 9.
Yeah, so that was brought up earlier, and the sole point of discretion is the size of the primary unit on Lot B beyond the 800 square feet allowed by law.
Yes, yes. I did have actually a question. I noticed in attachment 3, I noticed a discrepancy between page 2 or a possible discrepancy between page 2 and page 17 regarding the driveway. On page 2, showing the project site plan, landscaping plan, shows the easement being paved, the area in front of the primary unit on Lot B being paved, and then there's a screen fence and a 5-foot sort of gap between that paved area and the ADU on Lot A. And then there's a Meyer lemon tree and some shrubs proposed on the front of that. And then on page 17, it shows the driveway appears to be right up against Unit A. And there's more of a radius on the edge of that paved driveway there. And I was just trying to understand if one of these is the correct plan or if there's what the difference is between the two diagrams.
Through the chair, we may take a minute to just check the differences. I see the page 17 is a drainage plan, the grading and drainage plan, so maybe it doesn't provide all the details that are there on the site plan. And is your concern that the paving on the site plan itself is more than what's shown on the grading and drainage plan?
That's potentially what I'm seeing. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
I would like to note that there isn't a standard that the city has for the paving. So even if there is a difference, I'm hoping that wouldn't be material, but we can verify.
That's probably the important point then.
I believe there are restrictions on the width of the paving of a driveway to a garage, if I remember correctly from the municipal code.
That's for the front yard, that if you're in the front yard, there is a limit on how much you can pave. However, this is for Lot B, where the access point for the Lot B would include the driveway going to the garage. But I'll have Liz just compare the two plans and speak to that. Through the chair, perhaps the architect can also explain why the two plans may be different.
Sure.
Appreciate so much that your clarification about the paving. Yes, the front yard, right? I mean, but if consider privilege material, I mean, the driveway, you could do that, right? So, I mean, you're talking about driveway. Plus, kind of correlate to the site plan on A2 sheet and C1 sheet. I wasn't sure whether you're talking about the curb kind of leading. I mean, the fence, right? We have a new lot created, which is Lot B. Yes, a fence is for privacy, plus the trees and stuff like that. But definitely, if there may be detail that we need to incorporate into the landscape and site planning, we have addressed up to a certain extent that the planner feel okay. But we could, go further.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the driveway, if there's additional parts of the driveway which are on Lot A, if that's included in the easement or not, right? I think that there is an impact there potentially.
I'm not 100% sure which part you're talking about. And I have the plans here, but I mean, it's kind of far away. So.
Yeah, well, you have the actual access route, which would be included in the easement, and then if there's that additional sort of maybe potentially 5 feet of pavement in the back and the radius, if that's also included in this easement or not, that might be relevant. Depending on how it ends up being the final arrangement.
So through the chair, I hope I'm understanding what you're pointing out on the plans. My understanding is that the easement covers the driveway area only, so that paved area where the turnaround is proposed is separate from the driveway. And Public Works will require a recordation of the easement that includes conditions that it shall not be obstructed, or hopefully that answers. I'm not sure if I'm seeing where your question is coming from.
No, I was just curious about the potential discrepancy there, if there were any issues about that, but it sounded like that, wasn't an issue from this perspective.
Through the chair, I want to check with Liz if we have a site plan on the presentation. Perhaps we could pull that up. That might be helpful for us to hone in on the area of discrepancy that you're seeing.
I was looking at attachment 3, page 2 versus page 17.
Okay, through the chair, page 2 here. So let's see if I can get my cursor onto the land. So looking at lot B, is this the area where it says parking court paved area? Is that where you're referring to?
And then just above your cursor is a line that's a screen fence, which I believe would be on the new property line.
Yes, I see that
And
there.
then there's a 5-foot setback, and then there's the lemon tree. And then if you go below, there's just a dashed line showing the, I think the edge of the easement there, which is also paved.
Mhm.
And then I just noticed on page 17, the driveway is indicated to be, there's sort of a curve and it goes up, appears to go up against the front ADU, and then you would have a 5-foot, I'm assuming then that means that there's a 5-foot section of that, which is on lot A as opposed to lot B.
So it looks like the screen fence is on top of the pavement, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it was just seemed like a discrepancy between the two.
Through the chair, I think the paving plan, like that part that's on lot A, that's in that curved area at the back of the driveway, like that would not be part of the circulation space for lot A, for lot B. And we can certainly confirm, I think the specifics of how this is paved eventually can be determined at the building permit stage. The evaluation of the circulation was done based on the page 2 of the plan set, which does show that there is adequate backup distance to create that 3-point turn and exit.
Yes.
And this space on lot A would not be part of the easement.
Okay. I think that was it for me for right now.
Great. Commissioner Ebnetter, you said you did not have any questions, correct? I also do not have any questions. I want to thank staff actually for the staff report. I had, I think, 10 questions when I started reading the staff report. I had 0 questions when I was finished reading the staff report. It was extremely detailed, and every question I had was anticipated in the report. So it was just a really great, very comprehensive report.
Could I just go back? Because
Yes.
I am a little bit unclear on something still on the parking. And if I'm unclear, maybe someone else is. So I had a note here to myself, this question. Page 88 and page 89 show the project data forms, which show that lot 1 is to require 2 parking spaces, 1 provided as an existing non-conforming, and lot 2, is it A and B or 1 and 2? Okay, it's lot B, I guess, to require 1 parking space and 2 are provided. Why is it only 1? I'm sorry, remind me. I know you just went through all this, but I didn't catch it.
Through the chair, it's under the state law for SB 9.
It is SB 9, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
The city can only require 1 parking space for each SB 9 primary unit.
Okay, thank you for reiterating that. Okay, so in reality, they are providing 1 more than they have to.
Correct.
According to the state. Okay. It's kind of worth noting. I don't have any questions.
Any more questions? All right, why don't we proceed with comments?
Okay, so my dilemma is that I have some design comments, and I would like to put them out there because I think some of them are pertinent. I'll start with the most pertinent one. And I don't, I know this is, anyway, I'll go ahead. So I guess I want to start by noting that I'm happy that the lot was successfully, can successfully be subdivided into 2 standard size lots. I mean, it's a lot that's over 11,000 square feet. So, you end up with, 2 lots that are over 5,000 square foot. I mean, that's a standard size lot in many parts of San Mateo. So they're over 5,000 square foot lots. And so, there is that ability to provide housing in this great neighborhood. I do have some design comments, though. I think that, overall, in fact, I'm just going to cut to the chase to the one that bothers me the most. This house is designed, on Lot B, the first floor part of the building is designed with 14-foot high top of plate heights. That's a really tall building for a one-story building. And then the second floor is, oh darn it, where did I put that? The second floor has 10-foot top of plate. My house, which is a 5,000 square foot lot and a small house, it's got 8-foot top of plate and lots of windows. And this is making a very tall building that, the windows aren't even higher than normal. They're 7-foot high, which is, normal height. So this is 6 feet taller on the first floor than it needs to be. And this is going to impact the neighbors, and it's going to impact, privacy and views and daylighting and all of those things. So to me, and on top of that, there's a stairway where you're basically traveling up what's the equivalent of 2 floors to get to the ADU. I mean, it's that much taller. And correct me if I'm wrong, but 14 feet is a very tall, building in this neighborhood. So I feel like reducing that to work with an 8-foot top of plate height would do a lot to blend into the neighborhood. It's not going to change everything that the neighbors are not happy about, but that would remedy a lot of privacy issues, looking into neighbors' yards and the massing of the building. The second floor, like I said, has a 10-foot top of plate height, which is 2 feet taller than many houses, probably all the houses in that neighborhood. And again, it seems to have, from what I can tell, the windows are like normal 7-foot high windows. So it's just a lot of sheetrock above the window head. And it's going to be imposing. I see that one of the things that's been proposed is to put opaque glass on a lot of the windows in the second floor. I'm not sure. Maybe, I guess a lot of people don't open their blinds or their window coverings, so they wouldn't care if the glass is opaque. But if you like to have the sunlight come in, opaque glass is going to limit that. So I do think that, taking a look at the windows, taking a look at the top of the plate, the height of that building in the second new lot is one way to accomplish some consideration of the neighbors and the privacy. And it would also save a lot of money on the construction budget. You're adding like 8 feet more than you need to, if I'm understanding the plans correctly. I think that, I guess that's really my main point, but I have a few other points. The stairs to the ADU on Lot B could be a switchback stair instead of just one long stair going up essentially like 2 flights, almost, not quite, but almost. It could be a switchback stair. So you go up one and then you turn 180 degrees and turn the other way. It's that way you would have it would be visible to you as you approached from down the driveway. I think it would make it much more inviting and more attractive. It takes a little more design work to make that work, but I think you have some room on the side of the building to create something nicer than just this, big long staircase that looks kind of industrial. So that was the stairs. So I also noticed that in Lot B on I think it's the lower floor. Maybe I should pull up the plan real quick. Could we pull up the plan for the floor plan for the main first floor ADU on Lot B. Trying to find it on mine. See, there's that stair, and you can see it's really long, and it would be much more attractive if it sort of switched and faced instead of face the neighbor's, the back fence, it would face the driveway. So you sort of see an entry when you come down the driveway. But is there a floor plan?
There is a floor plan. I'll need just a moment to load it if you
Okay,
don't
sure.
mind.
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to go on to the next item, which I think is that I think you should try to keep some of the foliage, or it sounds like there is some thought been given to new landscaping, and I might have missed that in the packet. But I think that it's really important that these, if they're not big trees, and I guess they're, what were they called, foliage or something that's not heritage trees, that there needs to be some, excuse me, landscaping maintained or replanted. It would create, wildlife habitat for the birds, shade, screening between the units, that kind of thing. Okay, so on Lot B. Okay, so the one on the left. So that has 4 bedrooms and a room that's called a dining room, but it has a bathroom off of it, and it has doors closing it off from the kitchen. So in my mind, it looks like it's intended to double as a bedroom. And I think that creates a space, besides the fact that it's an additional bedroom and should be shown as such if that's what's being proposed. In addition to that, it creates a family room and a kitchen and a living room that have no windows except for over the kitchen sink. And I don't think that's really a very enjoyable space for light and ventilation and access to the outdoors and landscaping and from the living spaces. So I would like clarification on whether or not that dining room is going to be closed off with a bathroom in it or serve as a bedroom, or what's going on, because there's a lot of windows all around the building, and many windows, and I'm not sure why there's so many windows, but there's many small windows, but I would like to see that make more sense.
Go.
Through the chair, if I may just offer some background on the plan check review for this. Building permit plan check staff did also review these plans. And when a space meets requirements to be considered as a bedroom, they will review it to meet building code requirements. So that was considered for that dining room space. And building staff did clarify that it would meet requirements should it be used as a bedroom.
So the intent is not to have a bedroom there? 'Cause there's no closets or there are too many bedrooms already, right? 1, 2, but there's 4. We don't need another one. There is a space underneath that staircase, and we're trying to figure out how to best utilize that space. Initially, we thought, oh, let's do a bar, let's do a whatever. But then we thought, right, for you to access the kitchen and the family room, to access a bathroom, you have to go all the way into the, I guess, bathroom on the other side, right? So we said, okay, then maybe it makes sense to put a bathroom if there's space under there. So guests or whatever can utilize that bathroom. I think we're still debating because you actually have a bathroom next to your dining room, which doesn't, it's not very good to have a bathroom next to your dining room. But we're trying to figure out what to do with that space. right? So, but
Okay.
we'll get to that when I think building happens, right? Because this is from a planning perspective, we just want to make sure that the overall site looks good. And then the inside, once we get to building permits or whatnot, right? That's how it goes. Because we're still debating.
True,
on
except that I think one of the, concerns is how many people are going to be living on these two sites and how many bedrooms are there and how many
Right,
cars are
right,
there. And so
right.
just to be cognizant of that, I think that, if that's not a bedroom, then it's not a
Oh,
bedroom.
it's definitely not a bedroom because that space would be my parents and my aunt and uncle, right? That's why we did two bedrooms with attaching, right? Bathrooms in there, so each of them will get that. And then when the kids visit, those are the 2 bedrooms for,
I see.
for the
Okay.
kids. Yeah.
So, so then my concern about not having any, windows is not a concern if the dining room is open to the kitchen.
Yeah.
I feel like, so I guess moving on from that.
Yep.
I think that there's a lot of windows, but there's not a lot of like actual spaces that are outdoor spaces. Like there's this foyer and a small porch, but maybe that's sort of like that foyer, that porch could be bigger and more usable because there's not really any other spaces that are where you're gonna sort of sit outside or, watch kids play outside or, I would think that could be developed a little bit bigger. There's another.
Commissioner Williams, I just want to remind us that our discretion before us is the size of that unit beyond 800 square feet, that we can offer them design feedback, but beyond the size of the unit being bigger than 800 square feet, they do not have to accept our design feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, if I could just remind the applicant that, it's only when they're requested to speak and invited by the chair to speak that they come up to the podium and respond to individual commissioner comments. So all comments are directed through the chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, those are my comments. Well, I guess I should say, I'm a little torn, but I feel like that is it's a large house being added there, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so if that is an ADU, it's well over, we're talking about this lower level as a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house.
Yes, so state law guarantees 800 square feet for the primary unit, and then state law guarantees another 800 square feet for an ADU, which is what the ADU is currently sized at. But the additional square footage beyond the 800 square feet is the part that is discretionary.
Okay, well, those are my comments. I feel that it is very large for the remaining property.
Thank you, staff, for a very thorough staff report. It was much appreciated. Thank you, Commissioner Williams, for your thoughtful comments on the design. It was a good analysis, and I do also agree about a little concern with the light within the family room area. The thing that I think about is, what we as a deciding body or we as a city even have the ability to do with this project. And to me, based on my reading of state law, this project is covered by Senate Bill 330. So our ability to deny it is somewhat limited. And then also there's a new Senate bill that was signed into law last year covering SB 9 units. The Senate bill is SB 450. And it says that a local agency shall not impose objective zoning standards, objective subdivision standards, and objective design standards that do not apply uniformly to development within the underlying zone, which to me, if this property were not to be split as an SB9 development, it could still build a house that goes up to the FAR, or a combination of house and ADUs, and that would be basically the same amount of floor area. We don't really have, my reading of the law, we don't have discretion to say, hey, you can't build up to what our city allowance is because you're splitting this lot, or this is meeting all of our objective standards, which is the trigger for protection under SB 330. And then this project is also covered by SB 450, which again is brand new law, that we need to allow SB 9 units to use our underlying zoning for the single family neighborhood. And so I don't get the impression that we have a lot of discretion here beyond what, we could potentially approve the appeal and it would go up to the city council perhaps, and then it would probably get litigated in court and we would lose. So I just don't see a way that this could be denied.
Commissioner Nutter?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Thank you to staff, applicant, appellant. Thank you to staff, applicant, appellant, and planning commissioners, architect. I've been doing this for a while and I still have not found the perfect project to comment on. And I think that the intent and the use of this property as it has been laid out is incredible. I think it's exactly what we should be doing with our oversized lots here in San Mateo, and the ability to do it where it doesn't negatively affect the adjoining neighborhoods. I also always try and put myself in the shoes of the people who live in the neighborhood and how they would feel. And I think a project of this size, if it was put in the middle of my neighborhood, I would be apprehensive. Yet I would also know that I have repeatedly promoted housing where it fits. And again, this layout and this use of this property seems to be well thought. There will be impacts in the neighborhood. We can't say that there won't be. There always are when there's changes, either negative or positive. Yet I have a completely different take on this project because I did say there's no such thing as a perfect project. And since I'll only be on this commission for a few more months, it's a good possibility that I never will see the perfect project as a commissioner. The applicant had stated how important it was for her to have extended family, including aunts, uncles, possibly parents, and children living on this property. And I have had the pleasure of having 4 generations of Ebnetters living in my property for the last few years, and it's been a very rich and positive experience. And I'm somewhat jealous because I did it in 1,500 square feet, which brought its own joys and challenges. Yet, my concerns with this project, and this is directed for the applicant's information only, because I believe, as Commissioner Nugent mentioned, we have very little to say in this project other than this discretionary portion, and possibly not even that. But that's not my concern with this project. The concern that I have with this project is its location. And I think as a sophisticated property owner, there are problems in the Shoreview area that are somewhat well-known, but not all that well advertised. And the long and short of it is that since we as a commission and I as a planning commissioner have been educated throughout the years of what is feasible to expect as climate changes, as the climate change is progressing, is that we're not going to be able to alleviate quite a few of the impacts that are going to hit us or hitting us now. And the Shoreview area is being impacted, and it's going to be impacted as the front line of sea level rise. For the state of California, San Mateo County is the most vulnerable county in the state to sea level rise. The city of San Mateo has recognized the need to study Shoreview area and determine if it should be part of a sea level rise and/or rising groundwater overlay zone. The area is also highly vulnerable to liquefaction due to its unstable fill soils as substrate. Per city documents, the existing levee is not built to current standards and for both structure integrity or height to address even the minimum projected rise in sea level. The city has also identified this area as being subject to flooding in the case of a dam break at Crystal Springs, even though this is not likely to occur. There are more issues. Probably the most pressing one is rising groundwater. This property is roughly 1,000 feet from the bay, as far as I could tell. And per one shoreline, the countywide agency who is dealing with sea level rise here throughout the county has projected that we'll have high level groundwater all the way from the bay half a mile inland, which is going to disrupt all services that the city provide and public entities such as PG&E, Power, Water. This being said, I'm only saying this to the applicant so because I know that you're so excited to have your family move there. I would not put my family there. I would not invest there, but I can't tell you not to. But I do feel obliged to give you the information that we've been given throughout the years and that you have to base some of your decisions on. Thank you.
Commissioner Clafter.
I'll reiterate everyone else's comments. Thank you to everybody who's put in all of their work and all of the neighbors who've come out tonight and voiced their concerns. And I think it's all part of the process and it's very important. When I was looking at this, I was, just echoing some of the things which have already been said tonight. I was trying to figure out, what we even have the discretion to say here. Obviously, the lot split is sort of that's governed by the state, SB 9, the 4 units, SB 9. Ultimately, it comes down to the size of that primary unit on the secondary lot. Then as Vice Chair Nugent pointed out, that there may be other laws governing that, which probably would prevent us from being able to make any changes there as well. And I think it might be nice if the Commissioner Williams' comments on the plate height, if there was possibility of looking at that and potentially taking the neighbors the sightlines into consideration. But I did looking at the design, I did appreciate the fact that the ADU is set back on all sides. And actually, I was looking at the staircase and actually thinking I kind of appreciated the fact that it's kind of tucked into the volume of the building a little bit, which keeps it from obtruding into that buffer zone. Overall, I just think it's kind of difficult to find anything here that we're actually able to have too much input on. So,
thank you. I was wondering if you could put back up on the screen, it was the slide you had that had the FAR and the setbacks and the plate heights. I just want to take a look at it again because Commissioner Williams, you were talking about the plate heights, and yes, they are larger than I think is typical for a single family home, but I just wanted to confirm that they're within the regulations of the single family home design guidelines, which I think is a total of 24 plate, 32 peak.
Yes,
And you
that's
said
right.
14 feet and 10 feet. So they're at exactly 24 plate.
Right. But that doesn't mean you have to maximize it. That means that the windows are overlooking into your neighbor. I mean, an easy way to satisfy neighbors is to not be towering over them. So
Sure. I think I'm just sort of thinking about like, what do our rules allow you to do? And what is we as a commission, when people are following the rules, I think we have less discretion as a commission to say they can't do something if it's technically within the rules.
I recall when we were talking at some previous meeting that plate height means different things to different people. And in architect's language, it usually means from the substrate of the first floor to the top of the first floor plate, which is typically 8 feet. And this means something else. This is not architect's.
That is correct. So I have looked this up recently, and I believe, but staff can correct me if I'm wrong, that the definition of plate that is being referenced here is floor to floor. So it's not floor, I don't think it's floor to the bottom of the ceiling. I think it's floor to the bottom of the next floor. But staff can correct me if I'm wrong.
Through the chair, our height definitions are tied to from existing grade to the
Yes.
bottom of the plate.
So it's not just floor to floor, it's floor to grade, which adds more. So if you have 8 foot to the top of plate from floor to top of plate, and then you've got a foot of structure that's 9 foot floor to floor.
Yeah.
And then to grade, you might have another 2 feet, 3 feet, whatever it is, to get up the few stairs from, your front into your front door.
But I think what staff is saying is that 14 feet for the bottom story is grade to plate. It's not floor to plate.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping they would clarify because that wasn't clear to me.
Through the chair, I'm looking to Liz to see if we can pull up the plans, or perhaps the architect can clarify what the height of the first floor bottom of plate is.
Truth being told, 12 feet floor to ceiling height for the ground level. So the 14 feet means from the, we call, the grade,
Yeah.
okay, to the play line.
So the ceiling
So that
height.
include, the 14
So-
feet include the how do you call,
Yeah. Structure to
concrete,
grade.
slab on grade, really.
Yeah, but
It's-
then you
it's
have
up to the
12
civil engineer to tell us, foundation-wise, what would be the thickness of the slab and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but then you have 12 feet from your finished floor to your ceiling, 12 feet instead of like standard 8 feet.
Well, nowadays, if you go about, looking at newer construction, there was some back and forth discussion to see whether we're going to do 8 feet. Well, definitely there's no LeBron James in family, right? 6 feet 8. But, if we can do 12 feet, just make, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would
Okay,
just
I'm sorry.
say, because we've already discussed these comments before, my only point is I just wanted to confirm that what you're proposing is within the single family dwelling design guideline limit.
Correct.
And the answer to me seems to be yes. You're not proposing something that is outside of what the rules currently allow. So I just wanted to confirm that. I agree with Commissioners Nugent and Commissioner Clafter. There is not a lot here that we actually have discretion over. And I think that this project meets the intent of SB 9. And so I don't find that there's anything that we could deny this project over. I don't know if it's consolation to the concerns of the neighbors that someone posted, would you want to live on the street that had this development. I do actually right now. I live in an R2 neighborhood, and every single other property on my block is at least 2 units, and some are up to 5. It's a lovely neighborhood. You're welcome to come join me for a tour. My neighbors are lovely. It's great. And so, you know, for me, this project meets the intent of state law, and I just don't think we have a lot of basis to deny it. Are there any other comments?
I actually had also noticed the dining room, bedroom possibility. I was kind of curious about that as well, and I had asked staff about that prior to the meeting. And I think my main consideration was does that affect parking requirements? Does that affect any sort of other things? And the answer was it does not. So ultimately, I felt it was not, you know, it was kind of outside of our discretion, kind of what they use the space for, as long as it meets code.
Yep. All right, with no further comments, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to adopt a resolution to deny the appeal.
I'll second that.
And for a vote, Chair Patel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Nugent,
Yes.
Commissioner Ebnetter,
I'll abstain.
Commissioner Klofter,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. And with that vote, this item is closed. Again, I will note that this decision can be appealed to the City Council within 10 calendar days. All right, we're on to reports and announcements. Are there any other reports and announcements from staff or the city attorney?
Yes, thank you. I have a few reports. Manira Sandhi, Planning Manager. So for the March meetings, I just wanted to note that there is a likelihood that the March 11th meeting may be canceled. We will know in a couple of days, so we'll inform the commission once we have a certain outcome on that. I understand that 4 of the commissioners are also going to the Planning Commissioners Academy in March, so that's exciting, and we look forward to hearing how that goes. In terms of new projects, there are 2 new SB 330 preliminary applications that have been submitted. One is for the former Concar Passage project site, and we are looking to update the What's Happening page for that project. And the other one is for the Reimagine Hillsdale Mall site, and that information is live on the city's website already. So we're actively working on processing those preliminary applications. And then finally, I have some staffing updates, and I'll share that over email with you as well, that this is my last Planning Commission meeting. I have accepted a role with the City of San Jose, and my last date will be March 5th. I just want to say that it's been an honor and a pleasure to serve this commission. I think we've come a really long way in the 3 years that I've been staff liaison, and I've really admired the professionalism and the cordial relationship that we've all shared and the trust we have developed over these 3 years. So thank you for this opportunity, and I wish you all the best for the coming years as you take on new challenges. And I don't know if Zach wants to add anything to the staffing updates as well.
Yes, so along those lines, definitely sad to see Manira leaving the city, and appreciate her contributions over the past 3+ years. In the intervening month, I will step in to be staff liaison for the commission, and we do have a new deputy director starting at the end of March, who will be focused on planning and policy, and this individual will pick up the staff liaison role. But in the meantime, I will be your primary point of contact for anything that comes up. And we'll probably be looking at potentially a second meeting in March. Also, just wanted to clarify on that SB 330 pre-app for Hillsdale Mall. It is a preliminary application, and all it's vests, but there is no formal application. A neighborhood meeting will need to be scheduled before that formal application is submitted, and they have up to 180 days to submit that. So there's no imminent decisions or actions taking place. Just as the first step, and there'll definitely be a lengthy process, some significant environmental review that goes with it. So there'll be a lot of opportunity for the community to engage and better understand the project moving forward. So just wanted to put that into the record, because I know that's a big project for the city to be looking at in the coming years. Thank you.
Any other announcements from staff? No. I have an announcement on behalf of the Planning Commission. Manira, we wanted to thank you for all of your amazing work with the city of San Mateo. You've been with us for quite a few significant projects and initiatives in your time here. And if I'm just running off the top of my head, the housing element, the general plan, the objective design standards, the ADU ordinance, the SB9 ordinance, I mean, it feels like your time has seen a significant impactful work with the city, and you will be very missed, but your legacy will continue on after you with everything that has been accomplished under your tenure. I don't know if my fellow commissioners would like to say anything.
Yeah, I was going to say that the amount of stuff that we accomplished in your time here is pretty remarkable. So I really appreciate your leadership, and we're going to miss you.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for always being so clear and, helpful in terms of, my questions and, the whole process. So it's been a pleasure to work with you.
I'm obviously a newcomer here, and I think maybe only my fifth meeting here, fifth meeting, I think. But I just want to thank you so much for helping with the onboarding into this role and answering every question that I've had, and everything that you've done for the city. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Manira, for all of your time and efforts. I know that you've put in a tremendous amount of hours that we probably don't have any idea how many hours you put in. And until this evening, when Adam asked you about floor area ratio, I'd never seen you flustered.
Hardly. That was hardly.
Thank you for everything you've done.
And we have a little something for you. Thank you. Good luck. We can take a picture. Yes, definitely. That's okay. All right.
Margaret brought these too.
Do we have anything else? Any more announcements? All right, then I'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Movie.
My phone.